Leadtionary 2023. Live on Facebook at Bishop Gideon Titi-Ofei. Every Thursday at 1900 GMT.
Hi, this is Bishop Gideon Titi-Ofei, the host of Leadtionary, the Dictionary of Leadership. So we've been talking to very outstanding leaders, eminent leaders, prominent leaders. They are sharing with us the inspirational story behind their rise to leadership and their own personal definitions of leadership. It's very rare to see people who are students of leadership, who are also leadership practitioners, and who at the same time are also leadership educators. And today we have one of such people in the studio with me, the very, very, very popular, esteemed, Honorable Samuel Nete George. He's usually called the Lion. I'll be asking him why he's called the Lion. But Honorable Samuel Nete George is a second-term member of Ghana's Parliament. He holds a BSc in Agricultural Engineering from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, an LLB from the University of London, an MA in Conflict, Peace and Security from the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, and an MSc in International Strategy and Diplomacy from the London School of Economics. He has previously served as an assistant director in the head of Civil Service Office in Ghana before being appointed communications specialist to the President of the Republic of Ghana. He has also served on the governing board of the National Information Technology Agency. Sam George is the deputy ranking member of the Communications Select Committee in Ghana's National Parliament. He is also a member of the Public Accounts Committee. He is the Secretary General of the African Parliamentary Network on Internet Governance. Honorable Sam George, you are welcome.
Thank you so much, Bishop.
What is missing in your name is Dzata,
Dzata.
the lion. Usually you are referred to as the lion. Where did you get that name from?
Well, it was a branding decision that I had to take in 2015. In 2015, I took what would be so far one of the most pivotal decisions in my life to proceed to contest a man who was my boss and a mentor for the parliamentary nomination of the NDC Ningo Prampam, the late Honorable E.T. Mensah. May his soul rest in perfect peace. And when I went on the ground, I realized that I was young. I wasn't 30 even at the time. And here I was going up against a veteran.
Who told you have grown?
You know, and one of the key things that was going against me after the first month on the ground was that I was seen as overambitious. I was seen as a young man who was punching above his weight, who was arrogant, who was too forceful. And so I had to decide that, well, those were the weaknesses. How do I pivot them into a position of strength? And I said, well, my disposition is like the lion. If people saw me as that, they would understand the forcefulness with which I did things. And so I said, okay, then I'll call myself the lion. But another time, Honorable Afote Agbo was in Parliament and he was called Lion. So I couldn't, and Katamaz is right next door. I couldn't have also be called Lion. So I said, okay, then let me use the local name, Dzata. And so I chose to use Dzata and then rebranded, my team was called Team Dzata. And then all of a sudden people were like, that's why he is like that. No, I didn't hear why, you know, and that kind of stuff. And
well, when I saw you on the Ayawaso West Volgon, was it a by-election?
It was a by-election.
Well, by-election, and the way you were on the streets and giving commands here and protesting here and there, you actually looked like a lion.
You know, it's become the definition. A lot of people think it's part of my name, actually, but it was just a branding.
So what you have done is that you have channeled a certain energy that could have been used distractively to do something positively, and which I think is quite a very powerful leadership skills. How you have emerged, still relatively a very young man, and you have emerged as one of the major voices in opposition. Your party is currently in opposition, and you have become one of the major voices in opposition. You have pulled crowd anytime you are any of the morning shows, and the numbers would just go up like that. Tell us how your rise to leadership has been like. What is the inspirational story behind your rise to leadership?
Okay, so politics really wasn't an intentional thing. It wasn't people wake up and say, I want to go into politics and work towards it. My foray into politics was largely, I would say, my steps being ordered by God, but by providence. A friend of mine who had been my roommate in the university, we had rented an apartment after the university and were living together to save cost. And he was doing more communications at the time for the NDC. At the time, the NDC was in government in 2009. And in 2010, one of the mornings, he was supposed to...
So for our international viewers, NDC is the opposition party in Ghana. They are the National Democratic Congress.
And so he was doing communications. He was supposed to be on a morning show to represent the party as a spokesperson. At that time, I had started my IT business. I was doing a bit of consulting for the World Bank and UNDP on their funded projects here in Ghana. And so I wasn't a politician. But I mean, we were politically active, having conversations and all of that. That morning, he had a bout of diarrhea and so couldn't make the show. And said to me, Sam, can you fill in for me? I said, I'm not a politician. But he insisted, go fill in. We've discussed these issues. I fill in the show for him. And by end of that day, literally everybody who mattered in the party had asked to speak with me and said, you should be on TV more. Young boy at the time, excited about being on TV and being seen on TV. I said, okay, that's fine. And I started joining meetings. I was put on the government communications team. It came at a cost. I became politically exposed overnight. I lost my World Bank and UNDP projects. And so it was like, well, there's no going back. And I think that it was God who ordered my steps that way and put me in here. Then we kept doing communications. President Mahama became president in 2012. And in 2013, when he took over government, I kept working with the communications team at the end, November 2013, thereabout, the decision was made that I would be appointed as communication specialist. So I started work, I think, in February of 2014 and held that position till we lost power in 2016. At the same time, I served on the board of the National IT Agency from 2013 to 2016. And in all of those times, we kept building a certain following. For me, as a young person, I believe that I should still stay in touch with the young demographic of our country, and it's something I've tried to maintain. And for me, I think that's one of the biggest selling points I have, the fact that the young people of our country have been able to identify with me, and they form the biggest chunk of our demographics. I've tried as much as possible to remain the voice for them at the table. I say that I am not a politician. I'm a citizen with a seat at the table of politicians. And so once I have that agency, I hold it in trust for the people who have
You still don't see yourself as a politician? That's what you're saying?
I don't, because there are decisions I make and there are actions I take. Your regular politician will not take them. People want to be politically correct. I'm not interested in being politically correct.
Okay, there are two key things I want us to discuss before I ask you about your personal definitions of leadership. I think probably a third one I just come up to try to understand how to sit on the seat of politics and still not be a politician, and whether you've successfully been able to inspire young people from various political ideologies. But the first thing I want to talk about is, how do you stand out in a crowded field? Because you, in politics and the circumstances that led you to it, there are a lot of young people who have tried to be where you are, but they have been crowded out. They are power blocks. They are old people, older generation who don't trust the young people and try to, who still feel that I'm gonna die with my position, etc., etc. How would a young person be able to live his or her dream in a very crowded field of politics and even in other areas where there are huge power blocks?
I would struggle to say that there's a one-cap-size-fits-all solution or prescription to this. But in my case, I would say that my story is the story of grace. It's largely been, because I sit back and look at this. I've done this for about 13 years now. This is the 13th year in frontline politics. And my trajectory and rise defies the norm. In 13 years, I shouldn't have gotten where I've gotten to. And so clearly, I can only put it down to the grace of God upon my life. But I think that one of the key things that young people need to understand is that you may have all the grace of God upon your life, but if you do not give agency to that grace, it's not going to be implemented and people will not see it. It's like being lit as a candle, and instead of being put on a bushel, you're covered up. And I think that it's because people must know what you bring to the table. And that's one thing I've done. I've made it clear to the political class, the elites in my party, that Sam George is the kind of person who will get the job done, irrespective of what the cost is. I would do anything and everything so long as it doesn't contradict with my faith to ensure that the job gets done. And so people know that Sam is a trusted person. You can leave the job with him and go to bed and know you wake up tomorrow and it is done. People are not willing to give that level of commitment to their work today. People are looking for the quick fix. People want to get in and just rise to the very top. My relationship with, and for me, when I decided I was going to do politics, I decided I wanted to learn from the best. When I decided to do anything in life, I try to learn from people who are captains, generals in that field. And that's what led me to Honorable E.T. Mensah. And I said to him, I want to work with you. He said, well, I don't have space for a staff. I said, I'm not asking you to employ me. I just want to volunteer. I want to learn from you. Because, this is a man who, for 40 years and counting over, had achieved everything. He's one of the, for me, in my opinion, is one of the most successful politicians on the African continent. To remain relevant for over 40 years.
So trust is important. Yes. To cultivate trust, yes. Win the trust of the people. Yes. Where will you place, what will be your priority? Trust based on competence or trust based on character?
It's a mix of both.
A mix of both.
Yes, because you see, competence can open the door for you, but character is what will keep the door open. Because I could have gone with the competence of mass mobilization, good speech writing, oratory, and all of that. If I didn't have character, nobody would want to continue engaging me. Because leaders want people who have character. You become an appendage of the leader, and the leader doesn't want people who are going to detract from him. He wants people who will add to him. And so, yes, it's good to have competence. Competence is core, and that's why I said people must know what you bring to the table. So when young people say to me, I want to come into politics, I ask them, what are you bringing to the table? What skill set are you bringing? What utility do you bring to the party?
Amazing.
And so that's the question.
Amazing. So you need to have smart mind and good heart.
Absolutely.
To be able to survive.
Yes.
In any crowded field.
Yes.
Those things are important for leaders. Character and charisma, so to speak, and it's something we all know you have. And before I ask you on how leaders are able to channel their energies to do positive things and have positive impact, you mentioned the grace of God, which is very, very important in this guy. I know you're an elder of the church, Perez Chapel, whose Archbishop is my very good friend. I look up to him as a mentor and as a father, as well. So at the end of this conversation, I'll ask you how your faith has helped you to get to where you have gotten to. And I'm happy that you have acknowledged that in your rising, the grace of God has played a very, very major role. I remember years ago, there was an interview that somebody was interviewing me. So I was sitting where you are, and somebody was sitting, and then they asked me, Bishop, can you tell us the secret of your success? It was then that I realized I had no secret. And you know how sometimes when people see you, perceive you to be successful, you want to try to let them feel that you have some extraordinary things that you do and all. I was looking for one. I wasn't getting. And then the Lord said to me, success is a combination of my grace and common sense principles. You know, the everyday decisions you make and choices you make, etc., etc. So when we started, we were talking about your nickname, Dzata, the lion. And you have said that so what I've noticed about you is how passionate you are about your convictions. Yes. And the passion with which you speak. You know, I saw your video in Parliament where you were, I think, making a case for the passage of the anti-LGBTQ bill, and you were quoting from the scripture. It went viral, you know, the passion with which you were speaking. There are a lot of young leaders watching us today who feel that people feel their confidence, there is this natural anger in them. You know, there are things they can't stand, they have to react to, and all those things. It's spoiling their relationships, is destroying their opportunities and all those things. You were able to take all those things and channel them into positive action. Yeah. How did you do it?
It's just being true to myself. You see, people, every human being has a certain level of the spirit of discernment. People can tell when you're being real or when you're being fake, when you're putting up an act or when you're real about something. And I think that that's where the distinction comes. It's one thing getting a brief from an aide and going on the floor to speak to the brief. Is another thing understanding and appreciating what you're talking about. And so when you speak from a position of personal knowledge and personal appreciation of an issue, you speak with passion, you speak with a certain genuineness that comes through that people can relate with. And I think that it's a major problem that we have in our political space and in many leadership spaces as well, where people are trying to be politically correct. People are trying to say what they're trying to check boxes in a list. They're not necessarily speaking from their heart. They're not being honest and true to themselves and their convictions. The things they say publicly are not things they believe. I won't say anything I don't believe in. And for me, before I take a position, I try to understand what the subject is. I try to get a fair understanding from all sides of it and reach a certain position. When I take that position, I stand for it. I would either rise with it or sink with it, but that's my position. And I think that it's just because I speak to it, I speak my truth. And it comes from my heart. And I'm not worried about what the political consequences are. Because like I keep saying, my political rise is not as a result of a certain checklist of doing this or doing that. It's the grace of God. And I believe that grace is what will carry me wherever the destination is. But ultimately, I must stay true to that grace. I must stay true to that calling. It's like a man of God. Once you're called, you have a calling. It is your responsibility to preach the word, but it is not your responsibility to convict. It's the Holy Spirit's responsibility to convict. So for me, I would speak the truth as I know it. I would speak to issues that bother the young people of our country. And Bishop, I can share with you, one of the things that for me remains a grounding principle is, in my house, I still do the groceries. I still go to the mall. My wife sends me the list and I go to the mall. It's not because I don't have people who can do the groceries for me, but it allows me to know firsthand what's going on, how the average Ghanaian is faring. And so when I speak about difficulties or standard of living, I'm not speaking based on a briefing that I've gotten from an aide. I walk that journey. I do the spending. I am the one in the shops. And when I walk in the aisles of the malls, I get to meet people. People talk to you. People say things to you that a briefing cannot get for you. So it's all of these lived experiences that come through when I speak.
So you don't believe that leaders should be on the top of the triangle and leave the others down there. They have to come down to feel what the people are feeling.
You need to understand what the people you're leading are, because you're one of them. You've been put in a position of trust. And so if you don't appreciate the needs of the people, you can't minister or offer them the services that they need. You'll be prescribed. And that's a problem of many politicians and many governments. We offer solutions that we think the people need, but we don't offer solutions to the needs of the people. And so there's always that disconnect.
So we assume for them.
We think we know
Is
it
it
all.
not because most people in politics today, I would say most people, I don't have the statistical basis for it.
Maybe.
And a number of people possibly at the top of decision making at the level of the presidency, not just this presidency, but across, probably maybe apart from Nkrumah. We haven't had any group of people at the helm of affairs of this country whose parents could not afford the cost of taking them to hospital, who probably had never seen light off before because there were plants in their homes, who probably have not gone one day without eating before. These people are making policies and making decisions and all those things. Is there a problem with that?
Well, I mean, there's a certain value to lived experiences. A lack of lived experiences, however, will not be an excuse for you not to be able to still connect with the people. You have people around you. I mean, in leadership, you don't work in isolation. You can choose to create a bubble around yourself, and that's what brings the disconnect. But a good leader is one who's going to be able to still, despite the position of privilege that he's been put in, understand that he needs to speak to the needs of his people by connecting with them and building the systems that allow you to connect. Professor Mills made it wasn't a passing comment. It was a passing comment he made in a conversation. It stuck with me. He said the mark of a real leader is not in how you lead or how you are celebrated as a leader. It's in the impact you make in the lives of people that creates other leaders when you are no longer there. And so the real sense of a leader is not seen in his time of leadership, but it's after he's left. How many people did he empower to also take over from him? It's that leadership is a legacy. And so if you don't have a legacy, you failed as a leader. A father's pride is his son. You know, if your sons fail, it's incumbent that there's a certain failing on the father. So for me, I believe that lived experiences are important, but a good leader finds the way, even if you've not lived the experience, to connect with the people you lead.
Amazing. So with all these years that you've been among leaders, and you also have led yourself, and your profile shows you've studied a lot. In writing your profile, you didn't include that you also came to the Graduate School of Governance, which is now Accra Business School, to take some courses here.
Some courses in communications, actually.
In communication, how will you define leadership?
Service. In just one word, service. Leadership is service, because the more you serve the people, and this is what I've come to experience, the more I have given of myself in service to the people I represent in Ingo Pram Pram, the more they've elevated me. People find succor in a figure they can trust. Now, you build trust in people by the kind of service you offer to them. And so you realize that leaders have persons who serve them with diligence as the closest aides to them. So you have a team, but within your team, there's that one or two people who are literally your pillars that you rely on for everything.
So what will you define as service in leadership? How do you serve your people, and how do you measure the impact of that service?
Service to your people is actually attending to what matters to them, giving to them what matters to them. And so for me as a member of parliament, I've come to realize that it's fine and okay for me to think that I sit in parliament, I think that I've got an education and I know what the issues that affect my people are. That's a fair deduction. But I've decided that every year I hold 22 town hall meetings in each of my electoral areas. I go to the people. I say to them, this is what the plan is for the year. Can I have your input? What do you think? In certain areas, they say, this really doesn't matter to us. This is what matters to us. And so I tailor my service in each electoral area in my constituency different to the peculiar needs of the people in there. I meet with the business community and say to them, what exactly do you want me to champion for you? So service is about coming down to the level of the people you lead and understanding what their needs are and giving them that. Because service is just like communication, and I learned that at the Graduate School of Governance, that communication is a two-way stretch. When you speak and you get feedback, then communication is complete. It's the same thing with leadership and service. If you are offering a service and you're not getting feedback on that service by way of appreciation, by way of impact on the life of the people you're serving, your service is meaningless, because you're like a stone in a flowing river. The water is not permeating you. So you need to be able to get that feedback from the people you serve, that what I am doing, am I doing it right? Is it registering with them? Is it impacting their lives positively? And so when we set up the Dzata Foundation, for example, our motto is impacting lives one at a time, because service must lead to impact.
So servant leadership, in your view, is about meeting the needs of the people that you serve.
Yes.
It's about paying the price for the price of the people that you serve. It's about sacrifice.
Yes.
Okay, so when we come, I'll be talking to Honorable Sam George. When we come, MP for Ningo Prampram, when we come back from the break, I will be asking him, we will now be moving into politics, and I'll be asking him whether we have servant leaders in politics. God bless you. See you soon.
Leadtionary 2023, live on Facebook at Bishop Gideon Titi-Ofei, every Thursday at 1900 GMT.
This is Bishop Gideon Titi-Ofei. I have been at the center of working for the Lord all my life. For over 40 years, I've worked for the Lord as a leader of the Scripture Union, to being a leader of home cells, as a prayer warrior in churches, and then even as a cleaner, fixing instruments in churches, arranging chairs in churches. I've also worked as a youth pastor, branch pastor, administrative pastor, and now I'm a senior pastor. I've also been involved in the interactions with several people that have worked for God in various capacities, either as friends or as mentors or as mentees or as people that I've provided training for. My training for pastors have impacted thousands of young pastors. Based on these experiences, I have come out with a very life-transforming training program that I call How to Work for the Lord, the 5G approach. I'm using this body of knowledge to host my first Work for the Lord camp meeting. At the Work for the Lord camp meeting, I'm going to show you the 5G approach to working for the Lord. This camp meeting is designed for pastors, associate pastors, branch pastors, senior pastors, and more importantly, for those who are desirous to work for the Lord in any capacity. It is from the 17th to the 19th of October, and this is residential. I'm providing free accommodation to those that are willing to attend this conference and have an encounter with the Lord and sharpen their skills in working for the Lord. So 17th, 19th October, at the Theological Education and Mission Center, Community 18, Spintex Road. You will see the direction either on the screen or on the right app supporting this video, or call the number showing on the screen now. You have to arrive on the 16th of October to get your place. The place is filling up, so I want you to register now. Work for the Lord camp meeting. If you work for God, God will work for you. It's an amazing experience I've had working for the Lord. The more I work for the Lord works for me. So see you at the Word for the Lord camp meeting, 17th to 19th October. Arrival time is 16th. Free accommodation. God bless you. Thank you. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Leadtionary 2023. Live on Facebook at Bishop Gideon Titi-Ofei. Every Thursday at 1900 GMT.
Hi, welcome back to Leadtionary, the dictionary of leadership, where we talk to leaders. And today we are speaking to the MP of Ningo Prampram, the Honorable Sam George, who is very well respected and very well liked. He's liked by those who want to like him, and he's also hated by those who want to hate him. Before we went on break, we started a conversation on servant leadership. And for those of you who have followed me, you know that is my passion. And he believes that to be a servant leader, you have to place the needs of the people you lead first before you consider your needs. I'm now going to ask him whether he sees servant leaders in politics.
Now, I've been put on the spot. I want to believe that, yes, we have a few people around who are servant leaders. But I think that the crisis we face as a generation is a lack of the appreciation of even servant leadership. I meet a number of young people who say they want to come into politics, and the reason they want to come into politics is because they think it's the easiest way to get a V8 Land Cruiser and get access to money. And so the reason and motivation for wanting to attain positions of leadership is personal gain. And for me, that is a crisis. It's a big crisis, and it is part of the problems we're facing. It's not peculiar to just this government. Even when I served in government, we had instances where that happened. It transcends all governments. But I think that we need to have a lot more servant leaders. And we do have some, but not enough. Not enough servant leaders. Because, and I believe that for my short time in as member of parliament, 7 years now, I've come to realize that the more I give, the more I receive. But people don't seem to appreciate that principle, because there is a certain lag between the giving and the receiving. It's like planting. You don't plant and harvest on the same day. But the more I have giving of myself, the more I realize that I receive from my people. And as a politician, what I receive from my people will be votes. And I see it. I mean, in the margins of victory, in the total number of votes between 2016 and 2020, the appreciation, my votes tripled, and I say to the glory of God, there's no other politician in Ghana who's had their votes triple in successive elections. And so for me, it is a mark that the more I give in service to my people, the more I get. But a lot more people are interested in the here and now. I say to people, I am not rich, I'm wealthy. The two different things. A rich man has money. A wealthy man has relationships. And so I have built relationships that I can count on. Because for me, it's not about what I get in the now. Because money is transactional. The transaction is done, you move on. Relationships are lifelong. And so I have the gift of men. There are people I can call on who will respond based on the relationships that we have built. And I realized that when I engage with people like that, first reaction is shock. They're used to politicians wanting to make a demand. And I will say to you, I may have no demands. I want to be friends.
So you think relational skills, communication skills, these are basically soft skills.
Yes.
How important are soft skills for leaders, and what do you think are the most important, a set of soft skills that can let you survive everywhere, whether political leadership or corporate leadership, whatever?
I mean, soft skills are everything for a leader. A leader who decides to use the hard and fast rule of command and control is only going to survive until there's a mutiny.
Can you give us 5 soft skills that have helped you survive? I know you're speaking about communication.
Communication is one.
You're speaking about relational skills. Yeah.
Humility is another.
Yeah.
Humility is another very important soft skill. Empathy is another big one. And maybe the last one I would speak about would be the ability to identify individual challenges. Okay, so I get into a community and I'm able to maybe discernment is a soft skill. I'll target as discernment. Being able to get into a community and identify who is a key mover in that community.
Probably you call it analytical thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
The ability to be able to pick nuances, things that the regular person would overlook, but that attention to fine detail, that being able to be analytical to say that if I did this here and did this here, the overall impact would be much bigger than if I did 2 individual things. It's being able to do all of those, and that's what sets you apart from the rest of the pack as a leader. Being able to, in that moment, stay focused and take those decisions. And so for me, I think that those are soft skills. Soft skills is everything. I mean, it's the only way people can relate to you as a leader.
Last week, I housed the leadership of the National Union of Ghana students in these facilities to provide leadership for them. One of the questions that repeated was the question about how do Christians survive in politics? How do you really survive in politics? You are an elder of the church. You are a Christian. You are in politics. The perception is that politics is dirty. Politicians are corrupt. It's a perception. It's a very strong perception.
Very strong perception.
If you look at the Afrobarometer results, it reinforces that kind of corruption. If you look at that kind of perception, if you look at the lifestyle of certain politicians, it's also reinforced those kind of. How are you operating in the corridors of power as a Christian?
So the same way I decided to take a branding decision to call myself Dzata is the same way I took a decision that I must stand out in politics for my faith. And so I see Parliament or whichever political office I hold as my pulpit as a Christian. So I am defined first and foremost by my faith before the position I occupy. Because that position is transient. My faith is not. My faith is eternal. And so my faith has longer lasting repercussions for me than whichever position I occupy. And Bishop, I say this again with all confidence and to the glory of God, that even my strongest critic or opponent in the NPP, which is the governing NPP, New Patriotic Party, would never attach the word corruption to the name Sam George. I have never, in all the years I've served in public office, had any scandal or any issue related to corruption or perceptions of even corruption. People can have different perceptions about me, arrogant, forceful, but never corruption. Because for me, I must define my faith by saying that, look, politicians are not corrupt. And for the church, and for young Christians or Christians in general, I think that we need to begin to have a lot more Christians look at politics and come into politics. It's very important.
I'm doing a new research on the impact of religion on political thought. Yeah. You spearheaded a bill to make it illegal to be an correct me if I'm wrong, the bill is titled the anti...
this is the promotion of proper human sexual rights and Ghanaian family
But
values.
the outside
On the outside, it's known as anti-LGBTQ bill because it prescribes all forms of homosexuality.
Were you influenced by your faith or by your culture? What influenced your thought in this direction?
It's a mixture of three things: my faith, the culture of our country, and the mood of the country. Because the CDD did a study, and the CDD is the one that does the Afrobarometer as well, did a study on the bill, and 93% of Ghanaians support the positioning of the bill. So that's the mood of the country. And like I said, I held 18 town hall meetings in my constituency. I represent them to say, this is an issue I want to take to Parliament. Do I go? In all of them, it was overwhelming go. So my people asked me to go. Now, the culture. I met with the National House of Chiefs. They're the custodians of our customary law per the 1992 Constitution. And they said clearly to me, Sam, no traditional area in Ghana, no culture in Ghana supports homosexuality. So our traditions and norms and our culture and traditions define who we are as a people. And then my faith, definitely. I mean, the Bible is clear from the Old to the New Testament what the view of God on homosexuality is. I keep saying that times and seasons may change, but God's standards do not change. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the reason why we need to have a lot more politicians who are Christians and sons and daughters of the church in politics. Because politicians and leaders will take decisions. But in taking decisions, they do consult. Now, people will consult their sources of inspiration. As a son of the church, it is the apostolic fathers you will consult with. If it's not a son of the church, he will consult other authorities. And those decisions that leaders will make would be binding on both church members and non-church members. And so for me, I think that it's important we begin to push ourselves. And here, Bishop, I'd like to celebrate a son of the church, who's a member of parliament. We're on opposing sides of the political divide. He's an MPP member of parliament for, I think, Asin North. Asin South, I think. The Honorable Reverend Dr. John Ntim Fojo, current Deputy Minister for Education. Because when this bill came up, and I worked on the bill, I said I wanted to have a bipartisan approach. So I approached 4 members from the MPP side and 4 members from the NDC side, 3, including myself from the NDC side, to sign the bill. On the day we were to sign the bill, for some strange reason, 3 of the other members from the MPP failed to show up. The Honorable John Ntim Fojo showed up. He was the only one who was also a Minister of State at the time, and still a Minister of State. And the impression I got was that there was some pressure to stop it. And I said to him, my brother, I don't want to cost you your job. It's fine. If they don't want... And he said to me, Sam, I am a pastor. I'm a son of the church. I'm a son of Bishop Takiaboy. How do I go to church on Sunday and preach to my congregation if they ever find out that I ran away from taking a stand for my faith?
He's a very extraordinary man.
And for me, I would always celebrate him and the grace of God upon his life. Because for him to take a stance for his faith at the cost of possibly losing, even a ministerial position, for me, he has my eternal respect. But it goes to show you the importance of having sons of the church and daughters of the church in positions of authority. And it's not just in politics. And Bishop, we need to begin to look at this. Look at captains of industry. Look into our security services. Look into the banking and health sectors. You're failing to see young and church members or Christians ascend these heights. We seem to be content with little, but we need to, and the Bible is clear about it. It says that the nation will rejoice when the righteous is on the throne. Who is the righteous? Is one who is called of God. And so we need to begin to ascend into these positions. The Bible asks us to pray for those in authority. So leadership is not a bad thing. In fact, before elections started happening, it was the prophet who elected who the leader must be. He must have heard from God and appointed someone to become leader. And so for me, leadership is a mandate that comes from above.
Yeah. And from Egypt, where God pushed Joseph in the corridors of power to push his agenda. Esther was put in the corridors of power to push God's agenda. Daniel was put in the corridors of power to push God's agenda. In fact, Luke in the New Testament was deliberately put so because Luke had influence that he could write to people of influence at the time to try to present the message of. So the book of Luke itself, the Gospel of Luke itself, was written to actually governmental leaders to try to present the gospel of Jesus to them. So I believe that these things must happen.
Right.
You know, you said you sit on the seat of politics, but you're not a politician. How is that possible?
Well, when I say that, I say I'm not a politician, giving the stereotype of who a politician is. Someone who is self-conceited, someone who is thinking about their own interest and not the people, someone who's driven by what personal gain they can make. That's not who I am, you know. And so we spoke about the perceptions and the corruption and all of that. That's not who I am. And so for me, I am at that table. And part of the reason I ran for office was because I was also discontent with some things in leadership that I saw. And so I keep telling my team that my passion and my prayer to God is that I become the standard after my term as member of parliament is done. I want to be the standard by which people who were MPs before me in that constituency will be measured, and by which those who will come after me would also be measured. I want to become the standard by which people measure what an MP should be. And so for me, living up to that gold standard, not being the things that I was discontent with that made me run for office, is a check and balance on me. Because the moment I slip into the regular mode, I can't be the change I wanted to see.
One of the things I've noticed about you is that you're not a human pleaser.
No.
You try to speak your mind. That is based on my own deductions, hearing you speak on other places. As a result of that, I am assuming that you made some few enemies for yourself.
Yeah.
How do you, as a leader, have the courage to speak your mind, even though it may make other people uncomfortable, create enemies around you? How do you survive?
Well, it's part of the reason why I've stayed away from corruption. Because one of the easiest ways to silence a political leader is to have debt on him. The moment anybody, either in the political space or outside of the political space, has debt on you, be it moral, financial, or whatever, it becomes a sort of Damocles that they can dangle over your head and make you become their puppets. I am nobody's puppet because I have not come to you for anything. I've tried to live my life above board. I am not a saint, but all the same, I've tried to walk that straight and narrow path that my faith enjoins me to live. And so, yes, I've made very powerful enemies, not just enemies, very powerful enemies. But but I'm confident that in as much as I've made very powerful enemies, I've made very powerful friends, the masses. The large majority of the Ghanaian people believe that I speak what is on their hearts. And Bishop, I walk in the malls, like I said to you, and people walk up to me, or in traffic, people roll down their glasses when they see me driving and say, God bless you. I prayed for you last night. Our church said a prayer for you. The power of those genuine blessings and prayers supersedes any evil thoughts that anyone may harbor. And so for me, yes, I may have made a few powerful enemies, but I've got a legion of powerful supporters whose prayer and good energy and good thoughts carry me through.
What would your party do differently if they came into power?
Well, I expect President Mahama to leave a legacy. He has 4 years, God willing, from 2025 to 2028. He's not going to be rerunning an election. Our country needs a reset. And I think that God creates men for seasons. And I want to believe that he was taking out and giving the opportunity of just a 4-year stopgap to help us reset this country. I'd expect him to take very tough decisions. Decisions which a president who is thinking of a second term may not take because he is thinking of the next election. I'd expect President Mahama to leave a legacy where he rights a lot of the wrongs in our country by taking the tough decisions. This country needs a reset, Bishop. We need to rethink the way we do things. It's untenable that a dialysis machine costs $6,000. Just $6,000. And as a country, we cannot boast of a dialysis machine in every major hospital. It's literally only Korle Bu. And even Korle Bu doesn't have enough of the machines. This is a country that is blessed. This is a country where individuals' personal wealth could have bought over 100 of these dialysis machines. And as a country, we sit back. I mean, certain things are just unconscionable as leaders. And I keep saying that the death of P.V. Obeng, God rest his soul, taught me a very humbling lesson. Mr. P.V. Obeng, at the time of his death, was one of the most powerful people in the country. But when he had the attack, he was driving himself, slumped behind his car. It was a taxi driver who spotted him, pulled him out, and put him in the taxi and drove him to a hospital where he was declared dead on arrival. If it was about money and time to fly to get medical treatment, there is nowhere in the world Mr. P.V. Obeng could not have gotten that treatment. So time and chance happens to men, and we don't know where it will meet us. And so it is incumbent on us in leadership to build this country such that whenever there is a crisis, if we don't have the opportunity to be flown to other countries, we can get that treatment here. We can get those facilities here. And it is not beyond us. You look at the University of Ghana Medical Center. It is a world-class facility. It's been managed by Ghanaians. Why can't we replicate that? It was a decision of Professor Mills, one man, to say he saw the Sheba Hospital in Israel. I want it replicated in Ghana. He died, couldn't complete it. President Mahama came, completed it. It is serving Ghanaians, saving lives. Korle Bu was the decision of a man, a president, a leader. If we didn't have Korle Bu, where would we be? And so it is about taking those tough decisions. And I would expect President Mahama to take those decisions. And I've served notice and I will continue to serve notice. I would be a big critic of the government I hope to serve in if we fail to deliver on those goods. Because it will be untenable to remain a member of that government if we come and continue business as usual.
You've led a number of demonstrations against the current government. It speaks of your skills in mobilizing. We are running out of time. What I want to ask you is, what has this government done right? You have said a number of things they've done wrong. Can you tell us one thing they've done right?
I do a lot in the IT space. And one area where I would give credit to this government is the establishment of our cybersecurity authority. Because with a lot of the digital services that we're beginning to offer, government services are going largely digital. It's important that we build the necessary buffers for both the citizens and the state. Now, this government came in when we were leaving office. We didn't have a cybersecurity authority. We had an advisor on cybersecurity. They maintained him. And the current Minister for Communications came with a bill in 2020 to Parliament. I supported the bill, and we set up the Cybersecurity Authority. And Ghana's rankings and ratings on the global scale in terms of cybersecurity and our preparedness as a country, our robustness, is something that you cannot tell without attributing some credit to this government. And the ability for them to allow us infuse our cybersecurity with national security. I think that it's a problem many other African countries are facing, where they see cybersecurity as national security alone, but this government has been able to give a human face to cybersecurity. And for me, it's a soft thing that people may not necessarily appreciate, but wait until your financial details are stolen and your life savings in your bank account get missing, or your identity is stolen and used to perpetrate fraud, then you would appreciate what cybersecurity is. And I think that is one area this government has done well.
Amazing. Amazing. So you're an elder of the church. When did you get born again, and how has your faith helped you and shaped you to bringing you to this level? If you look into the camera and tell the people viewing us right now the impact of Jesus on your life.
So I was born into the church. I'm actually a child of covenant. My name Samuel is not just a fancy name. My mom was married for 7 years, had 10 miscarriages, and went into a covenant with God like Hannah, and said, if you give me a son, in a year, I would name him Samuel. So I was dedicated back to the church. And that's how come I'm called Samuel, because a year later she conceived me. I grew up, like I said, in the church, but I think when I turned 12, I gave my life fully to God and said, look, I want to serve God and walk with God. And it's been a wonderful journey. The Lord has kept me this far. He's brought me this far. And like I said, I've started the manuscript for my book, and the title is The Story of Grace, because my life is simply the story of grace. My faith has been that fulcrum around which my life revolves. One of the few people in this country who is able to act as a constant check and balance as my spiritual father, the Archbishop Charles Achinasari, who's been an immense blessing to me. I walked into Perez Chapel in 2007 as a young man with only dreams. Didn't know where I was going. But under that altar and under his leadership, I've found my purpose, I have found my life's vision, and I'm walking in that path. And so for me, people think that, Sam George was just made an elder because he's an MP. No, I've served in the church. I've served in the IT department in the church. And this whole elder thing, for almost 3 years, I told the Archbishop I wasn't interested in it, and he kept pushing. But I have served in the church. I've been a member of Perez now this is my 15th or 16th year. And I said I went to Perez as a young boy, not sure what I was doing with my life. I got married there, I have kids. I have experienced increase in every part of my life. And so for me, when the young people ask me what the key to success is, I tell them it's prayer, it's hard work, and dedication to God. And so for me, it is. I used to have a motto much earlier. It was God first, hustle and make money.
What a way to end my conversation with Honorable Samuel Dzata George, the Lion of Ningo Pram on Leadtionary. We hope to have him again. He was actually on his way out of the country, but we managed to bring him to the studio for this conversation. I hope it's been a blessing to you. I'm inspired myself. I hope you are also been inspired, especially in the area of his faith. And Jesus is not just a religious leader. Jesus is a life-changing spirit. If you accept him as your Lord and personal Savior, he will change your life. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again, same time, same day next week. Bye-bye.
Leadtionary 2023, live on Facebook at Bishop Gideon Titi-Ofei, every Thursday at 1900 GMT.